Hi everyone, welcome to LIGHTBOB TV. Today is Tuesday, episode 10, and today we're gonna start talking about fixtures. And in the same series that I started yesterday, what to do and what not to do. And one thing that I realize about lighting fixtures is that very young, how fast it goes and how impossible it is to uh, find the perfect fixtures for everything. So depending on where you're working and how it's made and when you need it and there you will never find the perfect fixtures. And what the market has done is that they went on the lowest fruit and make it a standard. And what happened is when you're leveling from the bottom is that the quality of the product is not there. And also it's very hard to achieve the proper fixtures because now you're comparing with something that is rock bottom doing nothing. So today in that episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to, no matter what's your background, what utilization you're doing, and that you're doing architecture, motion pictures, theater, rock and roll, no matter what, it doesn't matter. It's always the same thing. You will always be faced first with the cheapest product on the market. Very rarely you will be introducing with the Ferrari. They will give you the the little two wheels. How do you call this? What's net? Whatever. And then you gotta start from there and build it up to the Ferrari, because the project that requires it or the project you're working on requires a very high-end fixtures, and it's a very steep curve to walk up because of that, because you're starting from so low and so no performance, no nothing, that every time you come in you have objection, because everything is about the price. And in lighting, as we saw, nothing is about the price. We start with the right source. Now we're going to move on today to the fixtures, and I'll try to give you some data that will help you to up your game, to understand why you need to up your game, and what's the difference. What's the difference from the rock bottom to the Ferrari? And where do you position yourself as a lighting designer, light passionate, light architect, whatever you call yourself? Uh, at the end of the day, we are all obsessed with lighting, and we all want it to be the best that it could be. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to get the maximum uh, performance from those lighting fixtures that you specify, so that it achieves what your vision is. So that's the premise. Yesterday we talked a lot about the source and what's inside, and so now we're going to talk what's inside the fixtures, like what kind of source that is holding the fixture. It's not just a box holding a LED, right? The fixtures is more than that. It's got more complex, and as we saw in the previous, it has some specific job: heat dissipation, optics, power. Also, some of them have control, and also the lighting fixture have to work with each others. They have to be in synchronicity, so that when you put them against a wall, or you put them to light up something, an art piece, a billboard, or a stage, you don't have all these different weird colors happening, Maybe sometimes it's good, but most of the time you want to be in control of the color. So what we talked about yesterday, the source by itself is nothing. A lighting designer by itself is nobody. If I don't have a project to light, if I don't have a challenge designing a fixtures, if I don't have art to reveal, if I don't have beautiful architecture to stage or to present, if I don't have a show, an artist, an opera singer, or a beautiful piece of art on the wall to light up, a lighting designer is useless. So same thing for a lighting fixtures. You may have the best box on the market. You may spend all your career designing the perfect lighting fixtures. If you don't have the right source inside, it's nothing, right? And same thing for the source. You may be the most brilliant engineers on the planet and I've come up with the most performing LED, but if you don't have a fixture to put it in, then it's useless. So what the fixture is going to do it's going to happen is that with the source, it's going to help you to determine the performance. What's going to happen, right? So we know that the fixture is holding the source. We know that the fixtures also manage the heat. In the past, we had a very big fixtures for a very little source, and the source was detached from the fixture because it had no means to dissipate the heat. So we would make sure that it had enough air around it so that it wouldn't overheat the fixtures. And that's why you look at the fixtures from the 60s and the 70s, they're massive fixtures, very big, bulky, and and also very powerful. One fixture could have a 1,000-watt bulb inside. That's a lot of power, right? So the other thing that the fixture is going to be important for is that what's coming out of there. What kind of beam do we get? What kind of shape do we have, right? And the lighting distribution. So that's very important. As I was telling you, in the 60s and 70s, when we were designing fixtures, that was before my time, but I saw a lot of them. It was basically just a metal box with high temperature sockets and high temperature wires. Over the year, we came in with little thermocouple. That was a little piece of metal, a little device that was connected with the electrical circuit, that if we put the wrong bulb, or if by any misfortune the light bulb overheated too much, there would be a cutoff. So that would open and the fixture would turn off and the heat would stop. So nowadays we're calling it protect component. Now it's on the board. It's on the electronic board of the LED. It's on the protective board of the driver, and also on the dimmer. So it does protect the component so that if it's connected the wrong way, if it's overheating and whatever. And of course, that fixtures will either integrate or connect to a control system. Either the dimmer is inside the fixtures or it's outside. And if it's inside, maybe there's also some kind of a device attached to the driver that is wireless or has two little wires, and we have 0 to 10 volt to help tell the driver, the dimming system, to go up and down to the LED. So that's the basic hardware that we find on any fixtures, right? And the design of the fixtures will define the visual experience. Is it slick? Is it fat? Is it round? Is it square? That's the I would say the last part that's not really important, but for some people it is the aesthetic of the fixtures. So what we do is that let's start with an existing fixture. Let's start with an existing fixture. Look around, pick up a fixtures, and start looking. Right? Okay, it's a fixture that directional from the ceiling. Good. So what do you have? You may have a linear fixtures that is on the wall, or is also a directional from the ceiling. You may have a directional that's on a track. Some people will call it a track heads. And then on that track heads, you may find some little accessory that are, helping the lights to be directional or very sharp in one direction. You may have some filters that goes in that cut off the glare. So those we'll call little, accessory. And all of that is all part of this big market and this big industry, billions of dollars, that sells lighting fixtures. And again, when you don't understand light, and when you don't understand the two basic principles of directional and general diffuse, the first thing you're going to talk about is the lighting fixtures. Why? Because you don't understand light. If you do understand, you're going to talk about the light. Then you'll understand that you can have any fixtures, and I would say any fixture, do what you need. But if you start with the fixtures, you may not have any fixture do what you want. So this is the way that you understand. I see when people talk about lighting, if they understand or not. And also this is how I talk about lighting, because the first thing I want to talk is I want to know what you want. I want to know what is it that we're doing in that space, right? And no matter the size of that space, it could be a small room, could be a whole arena, could be a whole village, could be a continent. I don't care. I just want to understand what's going on. And then we will be talking about what kind of lighting we're going to have. We're going to have directional there. We're going to have general diffuse there. We're going to have directional. We're going to have directional at knee level below to light up the floor. We're going to have some beautiful directional that's going to bounce off the ceiling and give us a very soft light. And then we're going to have some general diffuse fixtures above the counter. Perfect. Good. I got that. Now we're going to talk about the fixtures. Once I have the list of what I want, now I can start saying, okay, here we're going to use this type of fixture. We can use that type of fixture. We can use that type of fixture. We can use that type of fixture. So it is the way to start staging your lighting setup, right? Sometimes it's easier to invent a fixture when you know what you want it to do. As an example, I want a fixture that looks like that's a general diffuse because I want them in the general area, and I want these to be like in the shape of a fish. That would be cool if they all swimming in the direction. And also, this is like an Asian restaurant, so we want to have these fish red, bright red, lit up, giving a nice little red glow. And then we'll have some directional on each side to highlight, the artwork and the different area. And then we're going to have maybe some 1-inch directional, so we don't see them. They're glare free, lighting every table. In 2 minutes, I gave you a lighting concept, and you in your head understand it perfectly, right? The first thing you're going to say, so that you may have a problem, is the fish. Where do we get the fish? Okay, so this is maybe the time where you're going to say, well, I got to find somebody that does custom lighting that can build me a fish light that's red, that's about 3 feet long, and that's about, 10-inch diameters, and then different shape because they're swimming and they're going towards one direction. Okay, good. So you understand that if I go in a catalog and I say, well, fish light, it's gonna be hard to find, or even on the internet. On the other hand, on my 1 inch directional that are above the table, I'll have probably 5 different manufacturers coming up. And then for my directional that goes on the wall, because they're not that important, they could be on the track, same thing. I'll have 10 manufacturers. So again, depending on how clear and what I want, and what I want to see, what I don't want to see, I'll be dictating the type of fixture according to the concept that I'm pushing and the idea. Same thing with a stage. Now, stage lighting has a little bit more flexibility because we have fixtures in show business that are moving heads. I mean, it could be very, very beneficial because you can light multiple different area instantly, almost. But also, it could be really, really annoying because after a while, you get, the wiper effect. It gets old. It gets old very fast. That's why now on stage we start to see visual element with screens and this, because now we can recreate these wiper on a video screen, but also we can do even more. We can create depth, we can create height, we can reduce it, we can enhance, we can take a cameo of something, bring it up, we can be interactive with the people. So lighting in stage and in entertainment and in team environment has evolved to a point where now it is very easy to be part of the attraction. It's not just having a bunch of lights, static lights lighting a stage and switching the colors and the intensity. That's not just that. Now we can have something that has some motion, interaction, and being vibrant and colored, and also be part of the experience. So the fixtures have evolved. If we look at the architecture, not too long ago, I was with a manufacturer. They came in, they showed me a 1 inch diameter fixtures that was 100% recessed, and you can plaster over, and then everything comes out of that 1 inch hole. Brilliant, amazing. Never seen anything like this. So it was very impressive. The other thing that we have to think when we think about lighting fixtures is where the LED board is placed, because the LED board is the one that's going to give you the light. If you have, let's say, they call it the wafer light, you're going to see that it's a round circle, it's flat, and it's on the ceiling. The LED usually are on the side, and they're all pushed in the middle, and then there's a piece of reflective material that supposedly push the light down, and a very, very poor performance. But this is, like I said, the lowest fruit, and this is what people are pushing. When you start going into little more quality product, then you have LED board, you have different type of LED, you have different colors of LED, you have different size of LED. So that's where you can start to talk about quality product. Same thing, these LED, the waffle one, the box supposed to be the heat sink. There's no heat sink really, because some are in plastic, and we know that plastic is a very poor conductor. It just barely withhold the warping. But when you start talking about quality lead engine, you're going to start talking about a heat sink. And a heat sink is a very simple piece of metal that dissipates the heat. Where does the heat go? Inside the fixture, or inside your ceiling, or inside a box. So you have to think that it goes somewhere. Now, what's coming out on the front? the front of the LED board, you have the light that is coming out of the front. So now you are either putting it to a lens and then shaping the type of beam that you have, or you put it into a metal reflector which control the light so that it doesn't go everywhere. Obviously, lens have more control than reflector, because reflectors need to have a precise angle calculation to give you the quality of light and beam and control that a reflector doesn't. Lens does, reflector doesn't. Now, part of all this, we have the driver. So now the driver, as the heat sink, is also producing some heat. So we got to decide where we're putting it. And of course, we have a couple wires that are connecting to a connector or to a wire outside or somewhere. So we do have some wiring in there where the access is going to be. And the last thing is that, are we going to be able to service that lighting fixtures, or we're just going to throw it away and put another one? And as I told you a lot, it's very hard to judge fixtures only by what it looks like, because you can have a catalog page that is very, very well done, Photoshop, award-winning graphic, and you may think that's a quality product, and then when you receive it, it doesn't, hold part. The other thing that you got to be also careful is the weight, because it doesn't mean because it's heavy that it's a quality product. Although the perception, your brain will perceive that if you have a quality product, it's got to mean that it's a good product, but maybe it's not. The other thing is that you're going to take that product, you're going to plug it in the wall, and you're going to let it run for a while. Half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, the longer the better. And then you're going to grab it and you're going to check the heat management. How does this product heat? Can you take it with your hand? Can you touch it? Is it burning hot? Is it this? Is it that? Is it even heat? And that's why I said the longer the better. Because when you put your hand on it, if it heats only in one place, that means that there's a very poor heat management, because the design should have been using the whole circumference or the outside of the fixture. And also how close this heat is to the LED and the driver, because if those cannot breathe, you're putting a mortgage on your electronic, meaning that you're overheating your electronic, and that's not good. Optics we mentioned about. If they use a piece of plastic that is very thin, you can be assured that the quality of your precise light is not there. If they have a piece of glass or they have some intricacy into the optic, and you can feel that there's some work that has been done, you can start to expect certain control on your light. And like I said, if possible, get more than one sample. Get two, so that you can compare the consistency, right? And if possible, try to do this before it's in the ceiling. Do it in your office. Do it on a job site. Do it at the manufacturers. Say, manufacturer is a bit biased, but do it at the agent or the sales rep or somewhere like that. Get a couple product, turn them on, let them run, then start comparing. And what I'm telling you is very is what I do. And I do this for all the projects because I don't do a lot of projects anymore. I pick what I want to do, and for me it's very important. If you're doing 100 projects a year, you may and you have a certain rhythm and you have a certain history with a manufacturer and you have a certain uh, discipline. You don't need to do this to all the projects. But if somebody new comes and you went to a trade show, you saw a new product, you want to try it, you want to do something new, you better have your little checklist of how to evaluate luminaire. And I recommend it very. So once we have the physical down, now how do we know what a cheap versus quality is for a luminaire? Well, if you plug it in, very glary, that's a sign that it's a cheap one, right? If you plug it on a dimmer and it dim and it start to wiggle, no good. If you touch the two products and they have different thermal stability, not good, right? And also, if you think about what it's going to be once they're in the ceiling, how does your electrician are going to replace a part if anything breaks up? You'll see right away that this is a quality product, this is a cheap, right? I've been telling you about samples and how to get. I always have an allocation in my project and I buy my own sample. Why? Because I don't want products that are on steroids that the manufacturer going to send me. I do my own. I buy them from different suppliers. I may order one from a distributor, the other one from the manufacturers, and then I see for myself, right? You have a couple hundred fixtures on a project. You don't want them to be uninstalled and reinstalled on your dime. You don't want to have any return. You have a couple thousand, this is a disaster. That can close down the manufacturer. So again, what I test for the beam quality, I test for the glare, I test color consistency, flickering, all of those. Because I learned that, photometrics is that little drawing that you see on the spec that is sometimes a little bubble. Sometimes it's got a little, looks like a butterfly. All of those are the pattern of the light at a certain percentage. Because when you're going to turn your light, you're going to have way more light than that and rarely find that beautiful shape. You're going to have all kinds of light that you don't want. And that's what you want to make sure you know before you put a light to light up a piece of art. Because if you want to have your attention on that piece of art, then you need a precise light, and you take one that's about that and lights up 3 feet on each side, you lose all your effect on that piece of art. Instead of having your attention on it, you have your attention also on the wall. So the art piece become part of the wall, and the communication is not there. It's like you have interference, and that's what we don't want. So basically, we have, again, we'll go to the different level, but basically, once you understand the basic principle of lighting and what it is composed of, what's next? Well, the second thing is how are we going to control that light? And I'm not talking about controlling of the beam, because we already talk about optics, we already talk about reflector, we already talk about different accessory that are going in front of it, and that gives you the possibility to control your beam. Now we're going to talk about real control. Like the first type of control we're going to talk about, like yesterday or the previous episode on Monday, is that the switching. We have fixture that just go on and off. That's it. So if you have a need for on and off, there's no use to have a very elaborate control system for that. You have a switch on off and that's it, right? And that's about the end of it. So you have a load, you cut the load, that's it. Very safe, very. The second type of fixture you're gonna look is that if we need to dim. Now, when we start dimming fixtures, we get into another game because now we got to talk about driver compatibility, right? The driver inside, are they compatible with the dimmer I'm going to install? What's the dimming curve? Remember yesterday we talked about that. So are they going to fail at 50% or are they going to have a beautiful curve, right? And the last thing is if the flickering rate, if they're going to start flickering. Same thing with level 3. Level 3, we got some color change. And remember, yesterday we didn't talk too much about that, but when we have an RGB WW, meaning red, green, and blue, warm white, cool white, we have 5 wires. So now we go from an on-off, which is 2 wires, to a 5 wire. So that means that everything along the line is going to be 5 wire. And because we need to have control of these 5 channels: red, green, blue, warm white, cool white. And sometimes they will add on more. So you will have 6 wire. You may have 7 wire. So because maybe they'll use a deep blue and a light blue. Maybe they'll put they'll put a deep red, or maybe they'll put amber in the middle. So depending on the configuration of the source, the number of wires can vary. And the wire can be directly to the driver or the controller, or could be all assembled in the fixtures, and then you have it, as we will see, a data cable that goes to the fixtures and handle these 5, 6, 7 channels inside the fixtures. Level 4, we start to have some pixel. So now, not only we are controlling a cluster of color, now everyone in those are controlled individually. So we're multiplying these 5, 6 wire by the amount of lights, and we start to address them by color, by group, by intensity, by different switching or dimming mode, etc., etc. So it does have an impact, but it gives you way more control. And that's the idea, is as we progress into this control level, we have more and more and more and more control. We're adding more people to the family, but we can control everyone. You do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. And the controller becomes a bit more sophisticated. So now we have to learn to address data, and we have to learn to manage it. And the type of wiring goes with it. And of course, level 5, we have our video matrix. So now the fixture becomes a display element, right? So now we can do different spacing, we have mapping, we have viewing distance, we have all these different interaction that's happening at that level. And the last one is when we start to make it talk with music or live control. So now, depending on what kind of music's happening, it's going to follow certain rhythm. And that's about, that's about it. And what I recommend to you is that start experimenting. Go on Amazon, go on Alibaba, go anywhere and start buying parts and trying to put them together. Not because you're going to become, I want you to become a lighting manufacturer, but I want you to understand in your own term and in your own lab and in your own self what needs to be done so that you can get the best result for your project, and how every time you're going to bring your project to a upper and upper and a better level and a better level and a better level. And that is the most beautiful gift I can give to you. Most people, they treat fixtures as a finished objects, and it's very sad because it's way more than that. But once you start learning about fixtures and what they do, you understand that they're a teaching tool, because you can learn a lot from the fixture. You can reveal, you can have them to control different intensity, you can have different beams, you can tell a story, you can, save lives, you can use it for emergency, and all kinds of good things, just by knowing what to do and what do you need them to do. You decide, not the manufacturers. The manufacturer should respond to you, not you to the manufacturer, if that makes any sense. So lighting fixtures by itself, there's a lot of engineering involved into the thermal, optical, material, and all of that is run by people. And people know what they know. I was talking to some engineer a couple days ago, and they said, Bob, you got to come and talk to our engineers, because the way you're talking about lighting and the way that I see that you're using lighting, it's not the way we're building lighting. We're building lighting on a very, methodological and scientific approach. We're not building lighting to reveal. We're not building lighting for experience. We're not building, and I was shocked to have this data from an engineer. Not that I didn't know it, but I was shocked that he was admitting it. And what did that show me? First, that there was hope in this, civilization, but also that after a while, technology is saturated. There's so much you can do with saturation. It's the people that have ideas that's going to make the technology go upper. If the more idea you have, the more the technology will evolve, not vice versa. Technology is useless if nobody uses it. So the more you use it, the more you understand, the more you apply it, the better we're going to have this technology. And the more, human-centric, the more wellness, the more, circadian, the more, interactive, the more it will learn from us. So it is always a two-terminal universe. The light needs us, and we need the light. So together, when you understand and you start using it, you'll make it go bigger and better. I mean, I could be here all day telling you about, what not to do and what to do, but I think you have enough information for today to make your own mind, to understand a little bit more about the fixtures, and understand the basic principle that fixtures is not where you start the conversation. Never. You start the conversation by what kind of light do you want? Do you want directional or do you want general diffuse? And then you start building. So thank you for today. Thank you for being there. And I'm looking forward to tell you more. And tomorrow, we have an amazing, I'm going to catch up on that last episode of the circadian. And Thursday and Friday, I'm out of town, so there won't be any episode. But next week, we're going to have something very, very exciting.